Welcome to another TechHelp Quick Queries video. This is number 29, brought to you by AccessLearningZone.com. I'm your instructor, Richard Rost. What is a Quick Queries video? Well, I make videos, and sometimes I get lots of questions that don't necessarily need a whole video on themselves, so that's what I do with the Quick Queries video. May or may not contain actual questions about queries. We'll see, I'm not sure yet. Starting off today, here's one I get asked a lot. One of my gold members, Jeffrey, wants to know, are there any alternatives to using Microsoft Access? Because his company doesn't want unsupported apps to be used. Which, if you got Excel and Word and Outlook, Access is just another one of the Microsoft Office family. So if your company allows Microsoft Office, there's really no reason why they shouldn't allow Access. I mean, you could do VBA in Word and Excel too, so it's not like it's a security risk. But anyways, I'm of the opinion that nothing is as good as Access as it comes to rapid development of a desktop-based database. And if you've got SQL Server or some other kind of database server in your office or on your network, then Access is a fantastic front end for that. And it gives you all the security that you possibly could need with your data. As far as connecting to it over the web, yeah, you've got things like PowerApps. You've got lots of other tools. Me personally, I love using ASP, which is very similar to VBA. It's basically VB script. It's an older version, but it's just as easy to use. My whole website's based on ASP. I've got it on my to-do list to do some PowerApps lessons soon. So if you are interested in that, let me know. Post a comment down below. And likewise, if you've got a good tool that you use that is a good front-end developer for either desktop apps or web-based apps to connect to a database server like SQL Server, let me know about it. Put it down below, and I'll check it out. Next up, moving over to the YouTubes. B. Jones says, back in the day, BASIC was frowned on partly because you could write spaghetti code that worked, but it would take hours to figure out why. Yeah, one of my favorite memes is the one that says, my code works, I have no idea why. And then it's, my code doesn't work, I have no idea why. It's this one. Anyways, yeah, I've heard from lots of developers over the year that BASIC isn't a real language, Visual Basic isn't a real language, only real developers use C or C++ or blah, 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 blah. Don't listen to any of those people. I've had so many clients run big businesses on code written in VB, and there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, how many companies still use old languages like Fortran, right? You can write spaghetti code with any language, really. And as far as only having one exit point, yeah, that's a good idea, because if you have exit functions or, exit subs high in your code, and then you think you're going to add something to the end of that, you forget that you have an exit point way up at the top. That's always a possibility, but you could do that with any language. So it's just a matter of writing clean code, not necessarily because it's basic. But haters will hate. It's like people hating on Access. I mean, Access isn't a real database application. Go get out of here. Go away. Ted Kima says, thanks for this video. Spent the whole day trying to apply restrictions on datasheet view to prevent resizing and deleting columns and all that stuff. Yeah, I prefer continuous forms myself. I don't like split forms. I don't like datasheet view, but there is one exception, and I've got a video coming out on this soon. I don't mind forms set to datasheet view is inside of other forms, basically as a subform, because then you can give users that Excel experience that they want, but you're still using Access. And yeah, they can resize the rows and columns and stuff and have a little more control over formatting, but you can still control what happens with the events and programming and stuff. So again, look for a video coming out on this topic soon. Jim says, if you don't mind asking, in your next Quick Queries video, could you provide some tips on managing the all access left margin? I think you mean the navigation pane. I think you're talking about this guy where it says all access. That's called the navigation pane. I know how you could think it says it's the all access pane because it looks like that, like I just did a minute ago, right? But it's just saying all access objects. And yeah, I cover this in detail in my Access course, but there's a lot of different options here. Maybe I'll put together a separate TechHelp video on going through all these different things. But I generally just leave this on all access objects. And then whatever you're searching for, like everything in my database that has to do with customers has customers in it. So there's all my customer stuff. Or orders, make sure I got order in it, right? If you want to see all of one particular type, you can collapse these sections like this so you can see just all of your forms, right? And there's different options up here. You can drop this down and you can see, tables and their related views will show you the customer table and everything related to it. I find this to be sometimes a little, complicated, so I don't usually use that one. But there's all kinds of different options in here, right? But yeah, maybe a separate whole video on this would be warranted. I know I cover it in more detail in my beginner course. But yeah, this is called the navigation pane. And in a properly designed database, once you're done building it, well, you're never really done building it, but I usually hide that. I don't let the navigation pane be something that my users go poke around in. They're going to interface the database with my menu and all the other forms I'm going to create off of that menu, right? I'm not going to let them poke around on the navigation pane. This is just for you. You're going to hide this when you're done with your database. Okay? And yeah, it can get to be a mess if you're not consistent with your naming. Right? Try to keep everything, even if you got to have if you got a query that's customers and orders, call it customer order queue. That way, whenever you search for customers or order stuff in that navigation pane, they'll both show up. Right? Okay. Stuart is asking, with my open folder video, he says, you added a copy of the database to the file location and mentioned that the back end should be there if you have one. Does it need to be like this? I'm creating a CRM and would like my team to have access to the filing system, but not necessarily the back end of the database. Okay. So if you've got a split database solution, okay, where your users all have their own front ends, and they're pointing to a backend database, they have to have access to that backend folder. Okay, otherwise they won't be able to use the database. So that's one of the downsides of just using a split access solution, is that you cannot secure that folder. There's tricks you can play to hide it, and I've got other videos on that, but if you want security, you need to have a like SQL Server. But anyways, if you trust your users and you've got everybody connected to a backend folder where the database is, I suggest putting your filing system folder inside of that folder, because I already got access to the database folder. On my network, it's the Z drive. Z is a shared folder where I keep my backend access databases and anything related to it, files, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'd put them together in the same spot. If you've got users that you don't want having access to that stuff, you can always put it in a different secured folder. You could have stuff set up for the accountants in the company versus the salespeople, and everyone can have their own permissions, but you have to do that at the Windows level. You can't do that in Access easily. If you want to learn more, go watch my split database video. I'll put a link to it down below, and my simple security video too. Christian says, this must be the first lesson I'm hearing global relationships. I'm not sure what that means. Okay, in Access, you've got two kinds of ways to join tables together. There are global or system level relationships that work throughout the entire database, and you have ad hoc joins. Okay? So global relationships are under Database Tools, Relationships, and you add tables into here, right? So add tables. You can add, the customer table. You can add the order table, right? And you can join them together based on customer ID. And once you do that, you can, enforce referential integrity and set up cascade deletes and all kinds of stuff. And then this relationship will be through the entire database. However, if you don't want to go that far, I almost never use global relationships. Very rarely that I use them, because for one thing, if you have multiple backend databases or you're using something like SQL Server, those relationships don't matter. But you can set up something called ad hoc relationships between the tables themselves in just a query join. Okay, so if you create a query, create query design. Where's this at? All right, so you add the customer, add the order table. Okay, now Access created this ad hoc join here, it's called. All right, it's a relationship, but it's not a defined global system relationship. All right, and it saw that there were two fields called customer ID, and it joined them together. Okay, I got a whole separate video on just this topic coming out, the difference between these two. But in the meantime, watch my relationships video if you want to learn more. And I got separate videos on cascade updates and cascade deletes and all that stuff. Just search my website, you'll find all that stuff. By his Alco wants to know if it's possible to have an online form open and used as a web page, for example, in your browser, instead of using Access Runtime. It'd be a game changer if Microsoft Access could manage this. I know it's possible to create an SQL Server database and blah, blah, which would be 100 times more time than to make with Access. For simple projects, yeah. I get it. I completely get it. It's a lot of work to set up SQL Server and define the tables and then connect to it and then build a web page. Is it possible? Yes, and that's exactly how my website works, but it's a lot of work. Now, there are ways that you can use web-based forms like Google Forms or Microsoft's online forms to collect data to get it into your Access database. In fact, I've got a whole video on it. I talk about it in my surveys video where I teach you how to use Google Forms to get data into your Access database. But that's just collecting data. That's not actually working with it and editing it and modifying it and doing that kind of stuff. Now, I have been kind of playing around with building my own Access to Web Converter database, where basically you take your existing database, right? Like my TechHelp free template database that you're all probably familiar with, right? You'll load up my converter utility, and then it creates a web-based version of your form. And I've got it working with most of the stuff. You've got to set it up with SQL Server first. So the tables have to be stored in SQL Server. So that you do have to do some setup ahead of time. But my converter can take the entire form and just export it just like this, connect to the table. I've got my own navigation buttons that I build down below. And I'm still working on command buttons. So those still have to be worked on. But as far as basic form design, it's getting there. I've been slowly working on this when I have free time over the past year or two. If you're interested in something like this, drop a comment down below. And the more people that are interested, well, maybe the faster I'll finish building this thing. I've been just kind of building it for my own use. Microsoft did used to have something called data access pages, but they dropped support for those years ago. So they thought it was too hard to do, I guess. But yeah, I've been kind of working on it myself. So let me know if you're interested. Shaloma. It's so hard to tell what names are sometimes because there's no capitals in here. So I think it's Shloma Shloma Spielman. Am I guessing that right? Glad that you enjoyed my video on record locking. He wants to know if there's a way to verify with code if the record is locked when loading a form, so it'd be more user friendly and a way of notifying the end user. Yes, a couple of people have asked me this. You can programmatically try to determine if the record is locked before the user tries to save it. You just basically put some code in the before update. You can use a record set and try to see if you can get access to that record with a record set before trying to save it. And then you can give the user whatever kind of warning you want. I've got a whole separate video coming out on this. A few people have asked me about it. And also in my record locks extended cut, I show you how you can implement your own record locking. So they'll see locked up here, and it will actually tell them if the record's locked because you're storing the record locking in your own table. So that's another way you could. There's lots of ways you could do this stuff, folks. It's one of the reasons I love Access. There's like 3 ways you could do everything. All right, next up we have Michelle, and yes, I can tell that's a Michelle. That's an easy one. Thanks for the video. I'm having an issue where I do have a footer that I can see in the design view, and I added a sum calculation under the footer. You mean in the footer? But when you go to the form view, it does not appear in the form. Is there a setting that I'm missing? Well, first of all, make sure that you're in the form footer and not the page footer. A lot of people make that mistake. The page footer only shows up when you print it, and of course, we don't print forms. We print reports. So make sure that you didn't put it there. Second, make sure you've got the visible property on. Make sure that your foreground and background colors aren't white. I've seen that happen before. There's a million things it could be. This is why I like it when people post questions in the forums on my website, because you can include some screenshots and I can see what's going on. This isn't enough information for me to tell what's wrong without, knowing a lot more. So yeah. Okay. Hope that helps. Check those few things. Next up, MAFG is asking if there's a user limit on a split database. He wants to do this for a team of around 10 users. 10 users should not be a problem. I have set up databases for clients with 20, 30, sometimes 50 users at the same time. It has more to do with the quality of your network than it does with the actual number of users, and of course how much traffic they're using. First of all, you want to make sure everyone is wired. Don't try running Access split databases over a wireless network. I've had lots of problems with those. Just the nature of wireless networking, you don't have a 100% consistent connection all the time. Networks drop here and there. With a wired connection, you should have far fewer problems. If most of your users are just looking up data, not doing a lot of data entry, you can have more users on the network. It's when record locks start getting involved and lots of people are editing stuff that you run into conflicts. 10 users should not be a problem. If you've got a modern network with, no problems, 20 users is even no problem. If you go beyond 20 users, that's when you want to start thinking about a backend server solution like SQL Server. But for 10 users, you should be just fine. To answer your question, though, I believe, if memory serves, the theoretical limit is 255 concurrent users, if memory serves. Let me Google it real quick. Here, hang on. Yes, the Google machine confirms that, 255. But realistically, 20 users is pushing it. 50 users if it's really light usage. So that's my experience. 10, no problem. Hanju wants to know, can you do that steps in macro recording? Access doesn't have a macro recorder like Word and Excel do, where you can start recording and then do a bunch of things and then stop recording and then it'll replay that. Access has a macro designer where you can pick actions from a list. I've got a whole separate video on it. Start with this video. It'll give you the basics on what macros are. Hey Hooves writes, I have another strange issue I hope you might shed some light on. My assistant inputs information on a ticket form each morning. Since I hid the database, the information she inputs on the form does not register on the table. However, when I input the information at a later time, the information registers in the table. This has only been happening since I hid the database. I'm going to guess that you may have inadvertently created two different database files. And she's actually typing in information and it's saving it in a different database file. So double check that. Make sure, where your tables are linked to. Also, make sure it's not a duplicate table. I've had that situation before too, where people have created a backup table inside the database, like customer 2 or whatever, and they're actually saving the data there, and someone else is linked to a different table. So it's either a different database file or a different table. If she's typing information in and she can move off the record and move back to it and see that the record is there, there's no reason you shouldn't be able to see it. So it's probably one of those two things. That's my guess. Another question from Hey Hooves. He's hid his database with the steps I showed in this video, and you lose the ability to right-click. Yeah, that will disable the right-click menu. It also disables all the ribbon buttons. You can still use Control-C, Control-V, Control-X to copy, cut, and paste. There's not really much you can do about that except create your own buttons, or you can create your own right-click menus. And my dog's barking. Hold on. See, I try to be nice when I'm home alone with the dogs, and I leave my office door open so they can come in and visit me. But then if we get a delivery, UPS guy shows up or whatever, then my dog goes crazy. So okay. If this had been an official course, I probably would have re-recorded that. But for a quick queries video, you guys get to listen to my dog barking. But anyways, no, anytime you go and hide the access framework, right, you're turning off a lot of functions too. So you have to either build those things yourself or reinstate the default access ones. I do cover all of that in my developer lessons. In Developer 44, I show how to build custom ribbons, so you can put your own stuff up here. And in Developer 45, I show you how to make custom right-click menus, so you can put your own stuff on here as well. So yeah, sorry, those are your only two options. You can either restore the access default stuff or build your own. Or you could make little buttons on the form too. If you want to use copy, cut, and paste buttons. Sometimes I put those right on my forms. If there's fields that I copy a lot, I'll throw a copy button right next to it. And you can just click on it and it'll copy that text. I got another whole separate video on how to do that. Like in this video, right? Copy the address. It puts the address down here, hit the button, it copies it to the clipboard. You can do stuff like that too if you want. Isaac asks about my event countdown form, how to get only upcoming events to show up and not show the ones that are past. Yeah, I use this myself. I have this up in my office. My now wife and I hate saying fiance, so we finally got married. But anyways, we use this to for upcoming trips, or her mom's coming to visit next week, so it's on my little, on my little server in the corner there. But I like seeing the negative number up there because then I know I can go and delete it. Right? But that's just a matter of use a query and make it so that that number has to be greater than or equal to 0 or it doesn't display, right? In fact, here's mine in my database. Lauren's mom's coming. She'll be here in 5 days. I'm heading up to Orlando in 16 days. I'm going to Seattle for the Microsoft MVP conference and for Access Day in 27 days. And yes, I've got the Spain Eclipse in 2026 on here. Ever since I saw the last eclipse in Dallas, I'm hooked. So I'm gonna go to this one too. I'll figure it out. Got 2 years to worry about it. But yeah, this events form is based on, if memory serves, an event query. It's been a while since I built this. Let me see. Open her up. And yes, it's events queue. So let's open up events queue. Yep. And then right here, days left, you'll just put a criteria right there that says greater than or equal to 0. That's it. I'm not going to do it in mine, though. But I like it like that. So, nope. And you can learn more about access query criteria in this video. Robert says, tabs can be a pain. I wonder how many bugs have been improved in the 4 years since this video. How many have been improved and how many have been added? As with all software developers, the access team fixes and the access team takes away. I've never liked tab controls. As I said in that video from 4 years ago, just when they first came out, they were riddled with bugs. And I know they've gotten better since then. And you can do some stuff with them, but I just don't like them. I like using a subform and I make my own little tabs, either buttons or labels. And then I just swap the subform out. It works so much better for me. That's just my personal preference. I've always hated tabs. But you might like them. Give them a try. See, let me know what you think. I know this is based on a Word video, my batch convert video, but I want to just include this in here because access users, you might want to go watch this batch convert video, even though it's about Word, because there's a good amount of VBA in it. And the VBA is very similar between Access and Excel and Word and PowerPoint. So this is a really good lesson for learning some VBA. Even though it has to do with Word, it's still cool stuff. And you can do stuff like this from Access too. But Nimish, to answer your question, yes, I miss WordPerfect. I used to love WordPerfect for DOS, I think I had 6.0 or 6.1, like you did. It was the white text on a blue screen. Remember that? I remember it like it was yesterday. I loved this. So yeah, I do miss it. I mean, things have gotten better, but back in the day, this was the jam. Anyhow, that's going to do it for today, folks. Enjoy the rest of your Friday. Enjoy your weekend. I hope you learned something today. Live long and prosper. I'll see you next time. If you enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up button right now and give me a like. Also, be sure to subscribe to my channel, which is completely free. And make sure you click that bell icon and select all to receive notifications whenever I post a new video. Do you need help with your Microsoft Access project? Whether you need a tutor, a consultant, or a developer to build something for you, check out my Access Developer Network. It's a directory I put together personally of Access experts who can help with your project. Visit my website to learn more. Any links or other resources that I mentioned in the video can be found in the description text below the video. Just click on that show more link right there. YouTube's pretty good about hiding that, but it's there. Just look for it. Now, if you have not yet tried my free Access Level 1 course, check it out now. It covers all the basics of Microsoft Access, including building forms, queries, reports, tables, all that stuff. It's over 4 hours long. You can find it on my website or my YouTube channel. I'll include a link below you can click on. And did I mention it's completely free? And if you like Level 1, Level 2 is just $1. That's it. And it's free for members of my YouTube channel at any level. Speaking of memberships, if you're interested in joining my channel, you get all kinds of awesome perks. Silver members get access to all of my extended cut TechHelp videos, and there's hundreds of them by now. They also get one free beginner class each month, and yes, those are from my full courses. Gold members get the previous perks plus access to download all of the sample databases that I build in my TechHelp videos. Plus, you get access to my code vault where I keep tons of different functions and all kinds of source code that I use. And gold members get one free expert class every month after completing the beginner series. Platinum members get all of the previous perks, plus they get all of my beginner courses, all of them from every subject, and you get one free advanced or developer class every month after finishing the expert series. And you can become a diamond sponsor and have your name listed on the sponsor page on my website. So that's it. Once again, my name is Richard Rost. Thank you for watching this video brought to you by AccessLearningZone.com. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something today. Live long and prosper, my friends. I'll see you next time.